Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to talk to you about Invincible, more specifically, the differences between the TV show and the comic series. I will also talk about each medium's origins. As a bonus, Season 4 is coming out soon, so I'll make predictions based on my knowledge of the comics. I will not cover the entire show, because you should just watch it yourself. But there will be spoilers for Invincible Seasons 1 through 3, as well as issues 1 through 65 for the comics. You have been warned. The comic series began on January 22, 2003. Its creator Robert Kirkman had the idea to explore the concept of a world where being a hero has moral dilemmas and consequences. He shows this through a naive teenager who believes he understands what it means to be a hero, but whose ideals and morals change throughout the series. The comics ran for 144 issues, ending on February 14, 2018, and spawning several spin-offs, spanning more than 15 years and inspiring a TV show. Prime's original series aired March 25, 2021, 3 years after the comic's conclusion. To much success. The show currently has 3 seasons, and a 4th is releasing this March. A 5th season is confirmed to be in production. The show is a faithful adaptation and heavily influences meme culture. This is why it continues to stay relevant today. We open with the White House. 2 guards are stationed at the gate in the middle of a conversation about a future vacation, when suddenly we're introduced to the Mueller twins, who plan to kill the president. Fortunately, the Guardians of the Globe step in and foil their plot, saving all the civilians and incapacitating the Maulers. We're introduced to Mark Grayson. We see him get annoyed at his mom and jealous of his father. This is pre-Powers Invincible. Instead of the Maulers, we're told Omni-Man is fighting a Chinese dragon that resembles Mr. Liu. Right after this, we meet William, Mark's straight best friend. They approach William's character a bit differently. He's openly gay. It's the first thing we learn about him. He is gay, but it's revealed way later in issue 80. We also meet Amber immediately. She's introduced in issue 8, where she gives Mark her number. She's unnamed when introduced. The Burger Mart scene and dinner scene are essentially shot-for-shot identical, except for one notable change. The "Are you sure?" meme, which is an original. Mark reflects on his father's words about Viltrum. Shows that talk later. Mark and his father talk to Art after some assault and a heart-to-heart. This is a speedier approach. They talk to Art after the Titan fight. Mark gets his name when playing catch with his father, and talking to his principal. Mr. Hines is introduced and becomes Invincible's first big bad. We meet Derek for the first time. Amber doesn't kick him in the balls, but in both mediums, he's a stereotypical jerk that ultimately gets some form of redemption. Invincible's second solo fight is not included, instead opting to introduce the team. They are introduced during the Flaxlands' first invasion because Omni-Man was recovering after killing the Guardians. He hadn't killed them yet, and was called to fight the Flaxlands. He and Invincible defeat the first invasion together, and Omni-Man is taken. During the third Flaxland invasion, Omni-Man voluntarily enters the world and completely annihilates it. Students are exploding in populated areas because of a bomb strapped to their chests. After investigation, Invincible and Adam Eve discover their science teacher was behind the bombs. They save Derek and prevent their teacher from harming bystanders. This is not included. Omni-Man tells Invincible to deal with a small threat in space. We meet Alan. Cecil tells him to deal with it. We still meet Alan. William and Mark go to Upstate. Amber hasn't been introduced yet, so she's missing. We meet Rick, but William is not openly gay yet, so nothing too interesting there. A reanimant appears and William finds out Mark has powers. Mark, William, and Amber go to Upstate. Rick and William get alone time. The reanimant shows up and Amber gets mad at Mark because she doesn't know he's invincible and thought he ran like a coward. William finds out Mark has powers. The Guardians are called back to their base and killed instantly by Omni-Man. The Guardians put on a good fight but are killed by Omni-Man. He's hospitalized. Damien Darkblood is played off as an incompetent joke of a detective that's never seen again after he solves the Guardians' murders. Weeks after the world knows it's Omni-Man's fault. Darkblood is a legitimate threat to Omni-Man and figures out it was him who murdered the Guardians. Cecil sends him back to hell so he can't reveal it to the world and set off Omni-Man. Omni-Man and Invincible's fight in Chicago is the same as the TV show, with one major exclusion: the train scene. Maybe this time you'll learn. The fight is the same, but the perspectives shift. We see Debbie's reaction when being called a pet. We meet Cecil Stedman when Mark wakes up in the GDA. We meet him when the Guardians' bodies are being analyzed. When developing the comic series, it's clear developing side characters was unimportant to Kirkman. However, when you translate that to a TV show, having undeveloped side characters isn't a great idea because it pointlessly blows the show with meaningless nothing burger nobodies. So the show had 2 options: remove the characters with little comic presence or develop them with something new that the audience could root for. We know which option they chose. This change makes for a smoother TV experience. Now look at the opening again. Why did the show spend 10 minutes, or 1/5 of the episode's runtime, on the Guardians defending the White House and a random staff member talking about France? The show is trying to subvert audience expectations, make you believe the series is just like any superhero show to increase shock value when the Guardians are murdered. As for the staff member, they're trying to humanize background characters, make you care about his fate. It sets a clear theme for the rest of the show, like how Mark wants to follow his father's footsteps initially, and even after Chicago worries that he will become his dad. It's the subtle details in the start that help reinforce this theme later in the show. Next question. Why did they make William openly gay? My best guess, back when the comics were created, being open about your sexuality was not as mainstream as it is today. The show released in 2021, so people were comfortable with coming out. Prime probably thought it would be acceptable to skip the big reveal to fit in with the times. As for Amber's quick appearance, this was probably meant to establish a love triangle between these teenagers. Instead, it created one of the most annoying characters of all television history. More on that later. Why did Mark have a heartfelt talk with his dad? This is meant to show how much he wants to be like his father, and later establishes a demon he needs to face. Scenes like Omni-Man giving his son the name Invincible also reinforce how much influence he has over Mark. It's stuff like this that makes the Battle of Chicago even more of a spectacle. Another question, why wasn't Mr. Hines included? Well, he's not very interesting, and he's not a reoccurring character like most other villains in the comics. Therefore, his exclusion doesn't change the narrative pretty much at all. The biggest change is that Derek gets a downgraded redemption, but nobody gives a shit about Derek. Mr. Hines was meant to be a starting point for Mark. A starting point proving irrelevant when you're faced with 50 minutes per episode. Why was the Teen Team introduction different? Omni-Man is recovering and Mark can't deal with the Flaxons alone. That's why the teens show up. But where were the Maulers? Well, they'd been introduced. So they let another recurring threat reveal themselves. The way Omni-Man ended up in the Flaxons' world also changed because producers needed to demonstrate how much of a threat Nolan really was. The comics hadn't killed the Guardians yet, so Omni-Man's intentions had to be concealed. This was not the case in the show. Speaking of the Guardians' deaths, why did they get a fight scene? Well, it's pretty obvious. Fight scenes are fucking awesome, and this one is one of the most iconic sequences in Invincible. On the topic of iconic moments, the train scene during the Battle of Chicago was added not just because it's cool as shit, but also it demonstrates the extreme level of destruction seen through Mark's point of view. When talking about the POV, we can't forget all the other characters who witnessed the massacre. A TV show needs to check in with side characters and have B-plots to be watchable by an audience. That's why we see Debbie's reaction to being called a pet. It's meant to make the viewers feel bad for her. Same reason for when we see Cecil react with disbelief. The audience needs to know. Speaking of Cecil, why was he introduced so early? Well, he's a very important character in the show, and his early scenes that aren't included in the comics demonstrate Cecil's authority over Mark when he tells him to defend Earth from Alan. The writers are probably setting up early themes, as well as central characters, so that the viewers don't need to learn important information, such as that and the second Flaxon invasion occurs, more notably the one involving wristbands. An alternate universe Invincible and Omni-Man continue conquering Earth and find the rebel base because Angstrom got spotted. However, while everyone in that dimension suffers under the oppressive tyranny, Angstrom is saved by a mysterious portal. We meet our Angstrom Levy. These are the openings in each respective medium, and all of these events happen differently when comparing timelines. Sooner or later, they take place in each version of the story. William dates Eve for a bit, which causes tension between him and Mark. This never happens for obvious reasons. Also, this happens, which if anything, is really funny foreshadowing. And speaking about relationships, this is one of the worst ever. Amber knows Mark is invincible, and when he finally tells her, she's still mad. Here, besides the change in melanin, Amber's response is much more reasonable, and she didn't know he was invincible. An Atlantean named Lethan saves Invincible and his people. Then some fish get freaky. When Invincible saves the Atlanteans, he learns the barbaric customs were removed. While Angstrom teleports to his dimension with himself, Invincible and the Guardians are fighting a bunch of pink aliens that seem to be like the Flaxons. Angstrom rescuing himself was more mysterious and it wasn't shown where he took him. The pink aliens are why Robot is demoted from leader position. He also doesn't have his new body yet. Robot has transformed into Rudy, and with his new emotions, he has trouble staying focused. He is demoted. Angstrom Levy takes himself to the other Angstrom Levies. He takes the Maulers to all his other selves. Angstrom reveals himself to the Maulers while in the prison. He reveals himself after the Maulers are outside the prison. Titan and Invincible's assault on Machine Head is practically the same, except Battle Beast nearly kills Bulletproof and Black Samson. He nearly kills Black Samson and Monster Girl. Adam Eve quits and builds a house in Africa. She quits and makes a treehouse in the dense forest. Robot constructs his own body using the Maulers, but way after they helped Angstrom. Robot still isn't Rudy. He breaks the Maulers out of prison so they can construct his body. This is before the fight in Chicago. Mark reveals he's invincible to Amber while Rick gets torn apart. Mark almost gets broken up with while Rick is getting torn apart. Invincible recaps the entire story to Amber, and then they get freaky. This is not included, but they do get freaky. We get the origins of Monster Girl, Rexplode, the Immortal, Duplicate, and Adam Eve. Most of these backstories have only been covered in little snippets, not in this much detail, except for Adam Eve, who got a special episode. Britt is introduced. He does not exist yet. Tech Jacket is introduced. He is seen in Season 3 but not given a name yet. Omnipotus is a villain all the other heroes are fighting while Invincible is with his father. The fight spans several panels, and Black Samson's powers get restored. This is what defeats Omnipotus. Omnipotus is played off as a gag, and we don't see his defeat. Samson got his powers back in Season 1, during the scuffle with Machine Head's men. An old gentleman fights Invincible during the scuffle with Viltrumites on his dad's planet. He fights an old lady with a knife in her braid. An unnamed villain mind controls superheroes, but Invincible takes him out with a boulder, much to the chagrin of Shrinking Ray. This villain doesn't exist yet. Shrinking Ray is a man. Shrinking Ray is a woman. More on that in the recap. Mark and Amber visit Eve in Africa. This doesn't happen. Invincible returns to his home because Angstrom threatens his family. Mark and Amber break up and Angstrom threatens his family. No Spider-Man reference during portal sequences. W Spider-Man crossover. Invincible has a side quest with Firebreather and Zephyr against Doc Seismic. This doesn't happen. Firebreather and Zephyr don't even exist. The downfall of D.A. Sinclair begins when Mark and William allow Will to be captured after faking homelessness. Mark follows the Reaniman and runs into Rick. William is captured after trying to locate Rick. Mark and Amber have their latest fight. Mark knows William's in trouble, locates him, and breaks Sinclair's jaw. He also discovers Rick is a Reaniman. Mark sees how the GDA are fixing Rick after D.A. Sinclair. This makes Mark hate D.A. Sinclair even more. This surgery isn't shown. Donald shows Rick he is a cyborg immediately after he wakes up from surgery. Rick struggles with mental health and nearly unalives himself before Donald shows him he too is a robot. And it gets better. Eve kisses Mark while he's still with Amber. This doesn't happen. Mark and Amber break up before Eve and Mark's feelings are realized. Eve is down because Mark doesn't have feelings for her yet. Although there's been some tension involving Mark and Eve's relationship, Eve isn't openly sad that Mark doesn't have feelings for her. After Amber gets another call from Mark saying he's going on a mission, she calls up her friend and they watch a movie, and she starts to fall for him. Amber calls up a girlfriend to take her mind off things. During the remaining Guardians assault against the Lizard League, Shrinking Ray dies after getting eaten. Shrinking Ray is severely injured but lives. Britt finds the massacre. This does not happen. Mark and Amber break up after Anissa threatens her. They break it off after the Sequid fight in space, and Mark thinks she'll be happier with Kyle. During Mark's visit with Rexplode, Mark tells him he broke up with his girlfriend. Rex blows it off with a been there done that. Rex explained he reflected on his life after being shot and realized he was a dick to people he dated. He shows concern for Ray's condition, and we learn he loves home decorating magazines. Even Mark talk about a future relationship, but it ultimately gets shut down because Mark reveals what old Eve said. Anissa threatens Debbie. She threatens Amber, resulting in the breakup. Both mediums end with Omni-Man and Alan in prison with the line, "I think I miss my wife." This was the beginning of Season 2. Season 1 had ended about a year earlier, meaning everyone had a fuzzy memory in regards to the ending. Imagine the shock when you be in Season 2 and you see Evil Invincible. It's unexpected, and chances are when this aired, people were tricked into believing something was wrong, until eventually the portal appears and it's revealed to be an alternate universe. This is a great trick done by the writers to make the audience get on the edge of their seats. They couldn't do this because it feels disjointed. The reader remembers what happens because they just read it. The shock value would have no effect. Let's talk about the portal. Angstrom takes himself straight to the safe facility. Why would they remove the current conflict? It has no bearing on the story. The pink aliens aren't recurring villains. Another guy who only shows up once is this man, who isn't named. This is most likely why he's excluded from the season. Furthermore, with the pink aliens removal, the writers had a problem. Robot still needs to be fired. They make his human form the reason, and it's justifiable. They replace the event with a joke of a fight. On the topic of joke fights, omnipotence is one big joke. Shows only have so much screen time, and the main reason the fight was drawn out in the comics was so Black Samson could restore his powers. Since that already occurred, there is no reason to actually include omnipotence. But how did that exactly occur? In Season 1, the assault on Machine had happened. Out of all the forgettable goons, one stood out: Battle Beast. This was certainly moved to Season 1 because Omni-Man needed to further test Mark. They also swapped the characters that get brutally beaten by Battle Beast to Monster Girl and Black Samson, so Robot could show some emotion, and Samson could restore his powers. Robot didn't need to show his emotion yet because he hadn't revealed his new body. About that body, Robot frees the Maulers in Season 1 in order to construct it. This doubled as a reasonable excuse to resurrect the Immortal after Rudy betrays them. That's why Robot's transformation was so early compared to the comics. Now let's talk about Amber. This bitch sucks. Why they replaced her with this is beyond me. Amber is arguably the most hated character in the show. Here's the list. I think they wanted to show Amber's intelligence when Mark reveals he's invincible, but instead it creates one of the worst moments in the show. It does avoid the recap, and I'll give Amber credit. She doesn't get nearly as close to cheating on Mark as the comic version, which I appreciate. It's always nice to see loyalty, and the breakup was handled better in the show. It was much less abrupt, and the threat of Anissa right into Angstrom Levy was a masterclass in transitions. The tension doesn't fade until after his head is caved in. Now let's talk about everyone's favorite character, King Rexplode! He is shaping up as an incredible character leaving this season. He has an amazing 1v3 clutch with the Lizard League, depicted way better than the comics. And he shows remorse for his previous offenses, as well as concern for Ray. Comic Rex has nothing on our TV king. I'm truly impressed that the writers could write some mid-ass characters as well as some peak character work. Now let's talk about some characters that never existed. Fire Breather and Zephyr have their own comic series. I own the Invincible compendiums, which include some crossovers. They were one of them. Image, the company that owns Invincible comics and various comic franchises, did not give permission to use Fire Breather and Zephyr, so any scene where they are seen fighting is altered to not include them. Let's switch topics. Why didn't Eve build their house in Africa? In the comics, that house represents a getaway for Amber and Mark. It grows the tension between him and Eve, but the show only has so much runtime, and a trip to Africa doesn't drive the plot forward in any way that something else couldn't take its place and do more effectively. Continuing with the useless story removed by the show, Lethan was removed for that reason. He had no bearing on the show in any way. His removal is justified, and they replaced him with a more fleshed out character anyway. Shrinking Gray was not killed in the Lizard League brawl, unlike her comic counterpart, who was there to fight the Guardians of the Globe. Her role serves more as a love interest for Rexplode, hence why she wasn't killed. But more on that, and Immortal walks into his cabin and Duplicate reveals she's alive. Mark is training for the impending threat of Viltrumites, when Cecil tells him to help Rex protect the Declaration of Independence. Multipole attacks them mid-fight and only stops when Duplicate reveals she's alive. Quite similar, except Immortal found out Kate was alive in Season 2. Season 3 begins with Mark training, and then the attack by Multipole, just like its comic counterpart. Omni-Man achieves the honor of Viltrumite execution before Alan arrives at the prison. Alan arrives before Omni-Man could accomplish this. William tries Mark's suit on. This does not happen. Before Doc Seismic captures all the heroes, each team is depicted in a precarious fight. Invincible and Eve are in Africa when they get a call from Cecil informing them of every hero's captivity. It's revealed that all heroes are taken when Rex gets abducted after a shower. Invincible and Eve are notified while they're at her treehouse. After Invincible's confrontation with Cecil, Mark and Eve kiss and become a couple. The talk on the roof happens, but they don't become a couple till the end of the episode. In Cecil's flashback, Brett saves his life from poisonous gas, and Cecil gets his scar. Cecil gets extracted by a team of GDA workers and gets his scar. This happens before the Doc Seismic fight. Titan grabs Isotope by the throat because he knows he's treacherous. He doesn't kill him. Titan and Isotope have a talk on the roof. No choking. When stopping the Mauler's missile launch, Invincible gets to space before he can stop it. Invincible stops it before it leaves the atmosphere. Both kill the Maulers. Titan fails to break out Multipole because Mr. Liao was impatient and he revokes his membership. Isotope teleports him away and chooses Titan. He doesn't betray him. Multipole tries to escape but fails. We get an origin story. Then we walk in Titan's shoes. We see his life. Titan talks to Machine Head about Liao. Mr. Liao begins to destroy the prison to free Multipole, but even Invincible show up due to contract obligations. Before Liao attacked Titan, Isotope seemingly betrayed him, but this was part of a much bigger plan to overthrow Liao, and allow Machine Head to seize complete control of the Order. It is implied that Liao will be resurrected. Liao does say a war is coming, but it doesn't occur for a very long time. Probably sometime after the Conquest fight or Viltrumite War. It's beyond the scope of these issues. Upon Alan's arrival to the prison, Omni-Man was to be executed. Alan recruits Battle Beast and they break out with Omni-Man together. Alan arrived and had several interactions with Nolan spanning a couple episodes. Before Nolan's execution, something else to talk about. Oh yes, Amber was struck by Kyle. This is Mark's second threat on ending a human's life. Amber is not abused, just in a nice prosperous relationship. For now. Watch your back, Kyle. Invincible helps the supposed murderer, the astounding Wolfman, see his daughter again, despite being accused of killing his wife. This spans an entire issue. This is not included. The astounding Wolfman does exist though. Immortal and Duplicate buy a house. This did not happen. The new king of Atlantis is sitting and waiting for action. This parallels the previous king of Atlantis. Lethan does not exist, therefore this is never shown. The Invincible War is teased but not started right away. When we see the Invincible variants, the war officially starts. The Chicago Memorial never happened. Instead, after a few battles with people that aren't invincible, Powerplex goes straight to risking his wife and child to get to him. They both die. Powerplex's reason for hating Invincible is visually shown and is a callback to a previous background character in Season 1. Powerplex delivers the iconic Invincible credits, and he escapes from a SWAT van after the Chicago Memorial, before risking his wife and child's life to get to Invincible. He ultimately kills them. The Invincible War begins, and it's more like a bunch of clips pressed together of heroes and Invincibles dying. The biggest letdown is Rexplode's sacrifice. He doesn't deliver his iconic line, and we don't see his valiant fighting before his demise. He also lacks character development, so his death is no more sad than the unnamed heroes. Each Invincible fight is dragged out and personal, which is awesome. The saddest part is Rexplode's sacrifice. He and Ray were brewing up a relationship, and he was actually helping her move before he ran off excited for the next fight. The last thing he said was, "Tell Ray I'm sorry I didn't help her move." He truly grew into an amazing character that isn't self-centered, but still a snarky self. It's truly devastating when he dies. Some of the biggest changes came from Ray and Rex's relationship, but that was torn away from us. Conquest fight! This fight is one of the biggest in the entire series. It's also adapted beautifully in the TV show. There aren't many differences, but here are some. Eve thinks Conquest is Omni-Man before meeting him face to face. She also puts up no fight against him and is immediately killed. Eve puts up some resistance, a type of resistance we'd never seen in her before. She still gets one shot. Mark says his iconic, "Cecil! I need you, Cecil!" While Eve is reviving, Conquest says, "I am so lonely." Lastly, Mark and Eve pass out next to each other. Debbie is less composed and storms off. Mark successfully calms her down. Robot and Eve deliver a speech at Rexplode's funeral. Shrinking Ray quietly mourns from a distance. Black Samson also begins a speech. The final pages of the issue tease Angstrom's slavery, the Psychoid's return to power, Conquest's resurrection, and Mark promising he'll kill anyone that hurts his loved ones without hesitation. The season ends with his slavery, the Psychoid's return to power, Battle Beast's recovery from space, Conquest's resurrection, Invincible's promise, and Damien Darkblood's return from hell. Alan arrives at the prison before Omni-Man is sentenced to die. They do this so he and Alan can establish a relationship, and so Nolan can be more vulnerable with Alan instead of some random guard. Another relationship that Invincible does differently is Mark and Eve's. They kiss on a bridge at the end of the episode because the audience wants them to be a couple. It's a cinematic way to end the episode rather than using Mark's roof. Another relationship is Cecil and Britt's, which does not exist in the show. Britt is seen in the series, but major roles he plays in the narrative are replaced with generic GDA workers or Donald. This may be due to copyright issues. Either way, it's unfortunate we don't get to see Britt so clearly. Other omissions include Lethan, the new king of Atlantis, and the Astounding Wolfman crossover. These are removed because they don't drive the plot forward, but the Astounding Wolfman can be seen fighting during the Invincible War. The Invincible War spans an entire episode because it's a big deal. The show needed to document its destruction. Big moments like Rexplode's sacrifice are much longer because he's a loved character in the show. Rex and Ray's entire relationship is show exclusive. His dinner plans with Ray happen in order to make his sacrifice more heart-wrenching in the future. It's beautifully written, but utterly horrible. My glorious King Rex! The show thrives on relationships more than action, although there are some incredible adaptations of memorable fights. The Conquest fight is practically scene for scene when compared to the comics. The biggest differences being Adam Eve's fight, because they want to show off her capability. Mark's call for Cecil, which shows Mark's reliance for a person he doesn't like, and Conquest's "I am so lonely," allowing the audience to understand and dive deeper into his character, besides the shallowness of evil Viltrumite. This all ties back to the show relying on relationships more than action. Even Powerplex's character and relationships are further developed. The writers have an entire episode dedicated to him, which calls back all the way to the end of Season 1, when Invincible tries to save a little girl and her mother, but fails. They also have a quick scuffle at the memorial. These moments the show adds display a challenge that Invincible must overcome. A challenge he has yet to overcome, which is moving on from his troubled past, and realize it's not his fault. On the other hand, an entire gang war happens, ending with Machine Head on top. This is included as a side plot, because shows can't just follow one story. It shows off a potential threat, Mr. Liu. The beginning of Season 4 releases on March 18th. As of writing this, the trailer has dropped. I will not be using it to inform my predictions, only the comics. There may be spoilers for Season 4, you have been warned. I think issues 66 to 76 will be covered in Season 4. I see 3 potential openings. Number 1, Nolan's monologue about Viltrumites and how the Scourge virus nearly eradicated the species. A virus that temporarily or permanently inhibits their powers. Then Alan and Omni-Man are sent on a mission to gather the weapons that can kill Viltrumites. Number 2, even Mark fight Universa, an alien that came to drain Earth's power for her planet. Number 3, the Psychoid invasion. Infected Russ Livingston emerges from the shadows to wage war on Earth. The characters struggle for a while, and as it begins to seem hopeless, Mark kills him. This is Mark fulfilling his promise to kill without hesitation if his loved ones are threatened. All of these events will happen in Season 4, and I think Omni-Man's monologue will be the introduction. It's an insane lore drop that will immediately hook the viewer. Let's move on to character introductions. Universa will be introduced. I think the show will dive deeper into her story, and she may become an ally against the Viltrumites. Tech Jacket will officially be introduced, which should be fun. Space Racer should be joining us. And finally, Thrag. We'll talk about him later. The Rag is Invincible's biggest antagonist. He is the final frontier. Luckily for Earth, his fights will be happening elsewhere. Some of the biggest fights of the season will include the Second Conquest fight, the Sequid invasion, the Viltrumite War, the Flaxen invasion, and the Dinosaurus fight for Los Angeles. Speaking of Flaxens, Rex and Monster Girl will most likely have little screen time this season, because they follow them back into their dimension after the invasion. In the comics, their absence spans several issues. I anticipate they'll do a similar thing here. I don't want to cover these topics too thoroughly, because I want you to watch the season when it comes out. But lastly, I'll talk about some show anomalies, specifically Ray and Damien Darkblood. The show could kill Ray right away, or retire her character so she won't affect the plot further. This would be a waste. I don't think they're gonna do this. Ray should mold the story of Invincible into something different, because the comics are great, but I like seeing clear and meaningful differences in a show from its comic counterpart. I haven't seen that from this show all that much. These people also created The Walking Dead, and we know just how much they stray from that series. Now it's Invincible's turn to mix things up. Damien Darkblood is the final big anomaly. He'll return and probably wage a war against Earth. This could be a finale episode, or just a dedicated episode. Either way, I like that the team is mixing things up. Now, go watch the show. Unless this video is released before the first episode drops. Then watch the Adam Eve special or something. Hello, dear viewer! Welcome to the end of the video. If you liked it, please leave a like and subscribe. If you didn't, then why are you here? Right? That means you had to have liked it. You're not going to be hearing this if you're a hater. But seriously, thank you for being here. It's 25 minutes of me yapping. Me just spilling my heart out. This is something I'm very passionate about. I love Invincible. I also love creating these videos. The editing process is just so fun because it's so difficult. I've been working on this channel for the past 8 months. It's pretty crazy. And this video specifically I've been working on for 3 months. If you're coming from your homepage, go to my channel, you'll see 4 other videos that I created. They're all not the same equal quality per se, because I lived and I learned from my 8 months. But they are all very well done in my opinion. So yeah, go check those out. I have 2 other videos in the works. A Hollow Knight video, which is how to 100% Hollow Knight. And an Invincible Season 4 video, which will be out once the season concludes, and I have a couple months to, prepare and get that all sorted. Again, thank you for watching. I truly appreciate it. I'm not going to take up any more of your time, but I just implore you to check out my other stuff. Thank you for watching.